Hey guys, my name is James, I'm not a duck, and welcome back to another episode of my comprehensive guide to redstone, where today we're going to be talking about redstone clocks in Minecraft. Last time we talked about daylight detectors and how they give a redstone output based on the time of day in game, such as rain or snow, or thunder, and how that output is also affected by blocking the skylight access to the detector by placing blocks above and around it. So if you would like to know more about that, then do go and give that episode a watch, but for now, onto redstone clocks. So, a redstone clock is a circuit designed to produce a repeating pattern of redstone pulses, with the output of the clock constantly switching between on and off. And so naturally they have a long list of uses in Minecraft, from continuously dispensing items or even projectiles using shorter redstone clocks, or to periodically activating a larger contraption such as a slime block flying machine in an automatic farm using a longer period clock. There are a lot of different ways of making a redstone clock, but the oldest clocks are the ones that are built with just redstone dust, redstone torches, and redstone repeaters, because these are all that were available at one point in the game's history. A repeater clock is simply made like this by having at least two repeaters powering redstone dust that goes into the back of the other repeater. Activating a clock like this one typically requires a very short pulse, such as very quickly placing and breaking a power source or very quickly turning a lever on and off, so that by the time this repeater becomes powered, this one is already turned off. So you could use a redstone torch like so, or even a lever in a similar way. And hence using something like a button will not work because the pulse length is just way too long and we end up with both of the repeaters powered at the same time. So they both become stuck being powered and we get no pulsing behavior at all. I'm going to use an observer predominantly for this, since upon seeing me flick this lever, the observer will give one quick 1 tick long redstone pulse and activate the clock like so. In this setup here with only two repeaters, both repeaters must have the exact same delay setting because any difference will cause the pulse to quickly catch up to itself, like so, in only 1 or 2 cycles round, as this repeater will increase the length of the pulse as it goes through it. But of course when you add more repeaters, these are much harder to break. But aside from those edge cases where these do break, like for those smaller examples, these setups are great if you need a clock to be constantly running, and it's also easily expandable just by adding more repeaters. Since every redstone tick is 2 game ticks, or 0.1 seconds in real world time, then you can add up to 0.4 seconds of delay to a clock with 1 repeater. So with the 10 repeaters I'm using here, we get a 4-second redstone clock, and you can of course go as big as you want with it. You can add 20, 30, 100 repeaters if you really wanted to. The only real limit is your render distance. Redstone clocks can also be made with redstone torches, and there are a few ways to make this kind of clock. The first way that I'm going to show you is what is typically referred to as a redstone torch burnout clock, where, as you can see, once I place a piece of redstone dust, here we get a very rapidly pulsing clock before it switches off completely. This happens because the redstone torch is powering this block, so the dust becomes powered, but because the dust is on top of this block, with the torch attached, then the torch turns off, deactivating the redstone dust and turning the torch back on. So we get a loop of this torch turning on and off repeatedly, after a few rounds of which the torch burns out, and stays off in this weird broken state where the torch has kind of forgotten that it's supposed to be turned on now, until the block gets updated by something around it. Like me placing a block next to it, like so, reminding the torch that it should be on and causing the clock to pulse rapidly once again. Placing more than one torch like this allows for a setup that constantly updates itself, so that we get a constant burnout clock rapidly pulsing. Like this. You can do this with just 2 torches if you set it up properly, but it's usually done with 3 or 4 to protect against them both just happening to be deactivated at the same time due to lag or something. But what we are looking for to make sure that this is working properly is this constant and much faster burnout sound that you can hear here. You can also use torches to make a loop, more functionally similar to the repeater setup from before, where you have each torch turning off the torch in front of it until it itself gets turned off, and we end up with this constant loop of torches turning on and off like you can see here. Naturally this doesn't work in this example here with only 2 torches because this one isn't able to turn this one off, so you do need at least 3 torches for this setup to function. And this setup is completely stable and should never stop looping around. Redstone torch clocks are also very flexible with how they're made. The same redstone clock with 3 torches could also look like this, and it is completely functional doing the exact same thing. Weirdly, while this setup works and is stable for 3 redstone torches, it actually becomes unstable with 4 redstone torches, as you can see here. It starts going and then it just burns out. And then in a second this clock will manage to update itself and it will go around again until again it burns out, this time leaving the next torch in the loop powered instead. Which I think is just pretty neat and may have some fun applications if you need a bit of a longer pulse delay. But yeah, then coming up to 5 torches and beyond, you just get a regular loop that behaves just like the 3 torch loop but with slightly more delay. You can of course also use torches and repeaters together to make a clock that has a longer delay than with only torches and is also much easier to turn on and off than the setup using just repeaters is, because you can power this block here using a lever and it switches off the whole clock just like that. And then of course switching this lever back off turns the clock back on. Next we have very basic comparator clocks, which very simply use the subtract function on the comparators to pulse a signal very quickly, either just with redstone dust going into the side of the comparator, or by having the dust go through a repeater like this one first. This first option is much faster, but bear in mind that you can't actually take a pulsing output very easily from either of these 2 pieces of redstone dust, as neither of these 2 pieces ever actually fully turn off. It is difficult to see, but this is pulsing between 15 and 2, and this one is pulsing between 14 and 1, so they never hit 0, so they're always on some amount, so these repeaters will never actually turn off. While this one, on the other hand, cycles between 13 and 0, which means this one is actually pulsing, and as you can see here by this repeater, that it is successfully pulsing on and off very quickly. With this version as well, you can of course change the delay and of course add many more repeaters for a longer delay as you wish. Next up is the hopper clock. Hoppers will continuously pass items between each other in this setup without facing into each other like so. So using a comparator to read either of these two hoppers, you get a clock with a pulse every 0.4 seconds, as that is the normal hopper speed. But it takes a hopper to pass its item into another container. This of course only works when there is only one item going between them, this piece of redstone dust that I've placed into here. Putting another item in, there will constantly be at least one item in there, and so this comparator will never actually turn off. So then next to this slightly bigger hopper clock is the very famously named Etho hopper clock, named after its creator Etho, made by using two hoppers that get locked by a redstone block that switches sides. Once the unlocked hopper, this one, has finished moving all of its items to the other hopper. If I put 16 pieces of redstone dust in here now, then you can see it in action, and then once this hopper is empty, the redstone block will switch sides, and it will begin filling up again because it's now locked while this one is moving its items into there instead. You can then take an output from the redstone block and you will get a pulse depending on how many items you choose to put inside of the hoppers. So 0.8 seconds per item because it has to go into one hopper and back again before it triggers a new pulse. So a maximum of 256 seconds for a full 5 stacks of items between them. Any more than that and it won't function because neither one of them will ever be able to be completely empty. And the last clock that I will mention today is the observer clock. Very nice and simple. When you place two observers facing each other, they will constantly update each other as they see each other becoming powered and then depowered over and over again. This is toggleable, of course, using a lever and a sticky piston, and is very useful for a very quick and easy fast clock that shouldn't ever break. Some clocks, of course, are too fast to rapidly pulse certain components, like the redstone lamp, because the amount of time it takes to turn off is too long that a pulse this fast will constantly keep it on like so. Of course, not the case for something like a piston, which will just fire repeatedly, very fast, and very loudly too. So that is all I'm going to talk about today for redstone clocks. There are a few more types of clock and more complex ways to build those and the types of clocks that I have talked about here today. And of course I will talk about those things more at some point in another video. So at this point I would normally show you how to craft any new redstone components I've introduced today, but this time there's nothing new to show. So then I will at least say that if you want more information on how comparators or hoppers or any other component that I've mentioned today work, then do go and have a look at the previous episodes in this series for more info on those. But that will do for me today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Please do leave a like if you did and subscribe if you want to see more. And do leave a comment down below telling me what you thought. So I'll see you next time, guys, for another redstone video. Bye!